Welcome to Florida, the Sunshine State, and the third Miami Grand Prix. This is the first of 3 race weekends in the United States of America. The Hard Rock Stadium is our stage, and we are almost a quarter of the way through the season. And my goodness me, there is plenty to talk about. Let's get into it on this, your weekend warm-up. Hello and welcome to the Hard Rock Stadium. What a ludicrous paddock this is for the Miami Grand Prix, the third running of this great event. And a huge welcome to Lawrence Barretto, to Will Buxton, and for the very first time this season, returning to the F1 TV family, the one, the only, Mayor of Hinchtown, James Hinchcliffe.
Yes.
How was that?
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
You might have a future in this whole TV thing.
Maybe. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. So nice to be here, be back with you guys. I've been watching all year. You've all been doing a phenomenal job, as is everybody back home in Biggin. It's been great to watch.
Thank you very much. It's nice to hear you're plugged in to the shows no matter where you are in the world, because you've been busy in IndyCar so far.
Been a busy year,
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, and only getting busier, but
Yep.
wouldn't want to do anything else.
We love it. Lawrence, Will, how you boys?
Yeah, really good. So good to be back in Miami. The weather's great. Hottest race, I think, of the year so far. It's going to be anyway. The buzz here, like you were saying, in this stadium, a pretty epic place for a Grand Prix.
Yeah, great to be back in the States. Such a unique venue, such a unique track. Just happy to be back. Another sprint weekend. Intense. Let's go.
And there is so much bubbling on behind the scenes, off track as well, which we will get into. You may be plugged into our shows, and we love that you are watching and continuing to be part of the wider F1 TV family. What you are not remotely plugged into, however, is F1 Fantasy Hinch. You are currently running last in the standings.
Yeah.
I mean, where am I again? I can't remember. Where am I in those standings?
I don't know. I wish
I
you'd
think
mention
it might be first. I think it might be first. Yeah. What's happened there?
Well,
Hinch?
here's the thing.
Talk me through it.
I was pressured. I was coerced into starting a team. I am not a big fantasy sports person, so I did it because I felt like I had to, and then I totally forgot that I was a part of it.
I could see that.
So I've not set my lineup or grid or however, I'm sorry, I'm not a very good model for...
Talk to the guys at Penske, see if they can give you a line of code to get you to the front.
I will...
Okay, we've gone there early doors.
I will not do that. Well, but...
James, you're on some 500 and something points.
That sounds good. That sounds pretty good.
I'm on 1,200. It's okay.
Okay.
I'll give you some
better.
pointers. I'll give you some pointers.
Okay.
We're going to put you to the test, as ever, straight in at the deep end for this season.
I
know.
Set you.
It's okay. It's just what happens here on F1 TV and on
Okay.
Weekend Warm-Up. You weren't in China.
No.
And I don't know what time it was in America, actually, when the
Late.
Chinese Grand Prix was on.
Or early.
We're going to test you now with your knowledge of that. Here is the 60-second recap. Over to you, Hinch.
Feeling that this might be coming, yes. Back in China for the first time in a long time. All Red Bull front row, no surprise there. The surprise was third place, Fernando Alonso. Another great result from him. Lots of passing on track. There was some issues in qualifying. Lewis Hamilton started all the way at the back, managed to race his way up. We saw a lot of action down here into turn 1. That's the Ferraris moving up. They ended up 4th and 5th, but it was not a great day for Valtteri Bottas. Maybe points on the table, but ended up with an engine failure. That caused a yellow, a double stack in pit lane. Very impressive from Red Bull. Some of the fastest pit stops we've seen all year, back-to-back. On the restart, though, it all went south. Lance Stroll not really looking where he should, hits Daniel Ricciardo, and then it goes from bad to worse for VCARB. Neither car will score this weekend. Danny was looking good, and then late in the race, Lance trying to make up for that little mistake. Some of the best on-track racing all day long. This is why the drivers love coming here. It was so much fun for all of them to come back and battle it out. This ended up not being for points. Magnussen's teammate, Hülkenberg, got the final point, but it was all this guy up front, Max Verstappen, over Lando Norris, who was not expecting to have a strong weekend in China, ends up on the podium ahead of Perez. And here we go, Zhou Guanyu, the emotion, physically and emotionally exhausting, finally getting to race in his first home Grand Prix.
Oh, you're all right, aren't you? We'll have you back. You're not bad at this.
How'd I do, Lawrence?
I loved it.
Look, you're the gold
it.
standard for this.
Yeah,
so.
You killed it, mate. You killed it. I loved it.
Lawrence gets tasked with this most weeks, so I'm sure you're glad for a weekend off.
It was nice to have a
doing
week
that.
off, to be honest, Hinch. Yeah.
You boys were both in China, we were not. So how was it? First sprint weekend of the year, a slightly revised format for that sprint weekend as well. Lawrence, what did you make of it?
It was an incredible weekend because it felt like the whole of China turned out for Zhou Guanyu. The noise around the place, it was packed out all weekend. They cheered every time he drove past. It was just a really nice atmosphere. And then you said like a sprint weekend, that extra buzz from the first day, everyone was on it.
Yeah, what I loved was changeable weather, some wet running, some dry running, the sprint weekend format, the way that's changed the team's mindset going into what this weekend will be. What they were able to do in taking the cars out of Parc Ferme after the sprint, ring the changes on it, went positively for some, went really negatively for others, like Lewis Hamilton, who rung massive changes in completely the wrong direction. So a lot of learnings for all the teams that weekend. Loved it, loved being back in Shanghai, one of my favorite tracks, one of my favorite races, loved the city, loved the place. So yeah, it was a cool weekend.
Awesome, love that. James, I was going to ask you what you've made of the season so far, and I'm sure Red Bull and Max Verstappen will be in your answer for that, because they have just been in such unbelievable, dominant, yet seemingly also insatiable form. The never-ending quest for perfection continues there. What have you made of that?
Well, I think that the biggest surprise just coming into it was how far they deviated from their car last year. I mean, they had such a dominant car, but they went back to the drawing board early in the season and put so much effort into coming up with a lot of new concepts for this car, and well, it worked. They did what Red Bull does, and they designed another absolute banger of a race car. Max is in peak form, and the great thing to see is that Checo's really stepped up as well. He's kind of really filling that support role a little bit better than what we saw certainly in the middle of last year. And, you know, I think like everybody, a little upset at the 5th to 6th place divide in the grid. Would like to see a little bit more of a mix up there. But no, it's been an exciting season, even though it seems like it's more of the same. Just kind of how Red Bull's done it and how they continue to just impress with how they execute on race weekends is, as a fan, really fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Sergio Perez as well has had a brilliant start to this season in what is undoubtedly a pressure year for him. While everything on track is seemingly going perfectly for Red Bull, or as close to as you can get in Formula One and in motorsport, off track, huge destabilising news for the team this week. Adrian Newey, an era-defining engineer, designer, one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, will be leaving the team toward the start of 2025. Lawrence, your reaction to this news and anything you may have heard with your ear to the ground of where he may end up?
I think it's the biggest news story that we've had in Formula One for a long time, and that's including the fact that Lewis Hamilton is going to Ferrari next year. This guy, Adrian Newey, is a genius. He's been at Red Bull for the last 20 years. Every single team up and down the grid want him. As soon as it became even a little smidgen clear that he was going to be available, everyone was bidding for him. We're hearing several teams have been chasing his signature. They still are chasing his signature because I understand no one's done a deal for him yet. But I think for that kind of man and that kind of talent to kind of leave a team of Red Bull stature at this time could have a seismic effect on their form at the minute.
Yeah, this is it, and Lawrence pointed to it there. I can't remember a time in Formula One, I can't remember a time in sport where there's been an outfit so dominant, so perfectly placed, riding the crest of a wave of success that seems to be on the verge of complete self-immolation, just complete and utter destruction from within. It's astonishing. Max said he wouldn't leave Red Bull for as long as there was stability. There is no longer that stability. The architect of every race he's ever won, every world championship that he's won, has gone. That's it. The stability he wanted is no longer there. Checo Perez said today, whoever gets Adrian will immediately be competitive, and it's worth noting that every team that Adrian has worked for, brought world championship winning cars to, once he's left, they have dropped off a cliff and never regained that success again. It is highly rumoured he will end up at Ferrari alongside Lewis Hamilton. Adrian said, I think last year in an interview, or maybe earlier this year, 2 regrets he has in his life. 1, he never worked for Ferrari. 2, he never worked with Lewis Hamilton. He gets to do it all if he moves there, and he's managed to negotiate himself a way out of that contract by the end of the first quarter 2025, putting him in prime position to start work on that 26 car, if it happens, and I'm sure Ferrari would love him to.
Yeah, if it happens.
If it happens.
But I've got to say, Lewis Hamilton had a huge, slightly squirming smile on his face in the press conference when pressed on it a bit earlier on. I also saw Fred Vasseur and Diego Iverno in the paddock earlier on, and I sort of joshed with them. Have you been busy this week? Any meetings? Any news being, news around there? Any deals being done? And they practically ran away from me. They were so keen not to give anything away. Look, we don't know yet, do we? We can't be sure, we can't confirm anything, but Ferrari are very much, it seems, top of the list. Aston Martin have also been touted, and that would be welcomed absolutely by Fernando Alonso. James, quickly then, just your reaction to this news, and as a driver in a team, how destabilising might this be?
Well, I mean, they've got the dream team there, right? And they have for such a long time that, yeah, this is going to be felt through the entire organization. So many people put so much stock in what Adrian brings to the organization from a leadership standpoint, from a technical standpoint, that removing that and kind of in the environment in which it's happened, I think it does destabilize the team. It's going to make the drivers have questions about moving forward. Not to say the team below Adrian at the squad is not very strong, very stout, very capable, but he is a figurehead. He is a leader, and so losing that is a huge blow.
Yeah, it is. We'll move from Red Bull then on to their sister team, VCARB. You were at their livery launch. I feel like all the eyes were on Ferrari's livery launch, bringing in that blue to the typical red that we see on the Ferrari. VCARB have come out with, I'm going to say it, I mean, it's very my vibe, but one of the best liveries I've ever seen. I love it.
They've basically pulled it out of the bag, haven't they? That rainbow chameleon livery, they've really gone all in. I think a lot of the time these days you get liveries that are like a small little tweak, like the Ferrari one this week with a few hints of blue, but RB, VCARB have gone for it in a big, big way. I think it's great that you can do a special edition livery for certain races, especially when you come into America. Yuki Tsunoda, Daniel Ricciardo in great form yesterday. They did it at a car wash. So basically they spray painted the car with water-based paint, ran it through the car wash. It came out the other side with the livery that they're going to be racing today.
That's cool.
It's a great idea, right? It's a really cool activation. And we gave Daniel and Yuki some cameras to mess around and
I've heard it's
shoot their own
chaos.
video. It was absolute chaos.
Absolute chaos.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Basically, they didn't want to do a box standard interview. They were like delighted when I gave them 2 cameras to just go and film whatever they could around the car. Yuki was down on the floor. Daniel had the 360 camera. They're having a great time.
There's some great angles there for sure. New chassis for Daniel as
Yep.
well, Will.
Last time out in
You seem
China,
more
yeah.
competitive in China.
Yeah, way happier with the car. At the same time as Yuki, just fell off
Yeah.
the other side. So big questions there. Alex Brundle was asking the question of whether the lifing on the chassis actually leads to the chassis becoming slightly soft, which is a really interesting point that I think the team might need to look into at a certain point. But yeah, Yuki tailing off, Daniel looking great. I got to agree with Lawrence, by the way, and everybody on that livery. I think it's stunning. Stunning. And if VCARB had just launched with that livery, there would have been no questions in this paddock about, they've got no identity, it's just all a bit, meh. That's an identity right there. I think it looks great.
Petition right here, right now, on weekend warm-up for VCARB to keep that livery.
Yeah.
Okay, Lawrence Barretto earlier on here on Media Day in Miami spoke to Daniel Ricciardo.
I know on paper China wasn't so strong for you, but it feels like you really turned a corner there. I can just tell by the way you talk and the way you feel in the car. Is that a fair reflection of how things are going at the minute?
Yes. Yeah, it is. We obviously, like always, you got to back it up. But yeah, it was just the feeling inside the car that weekend, really, from FP1. Everything just felt a bit more conventional, a bit more normal, I'd say. And yeah, things just came a little bit more effortlessly, and that's not taking it lightly. But yeah, it just kind of rolled. And as kind of I'd probably expected the season to go, which obviously hadn't really until that point. So yeah, it was good. Obviously the race cut a bit short, but I'm very, very excited to be back here at a race and to get in the car. And all I want to do is race and compete now. I'm, knowing that we had to wait a week after China. I mean, yeah, it's nice to have a weekend off, but yeah, I just want to be in the car right now.
I can tell you're itching to go again. You've got upgrades on the car this weekend. I think it's a new floor. Encouraged by the way the team is developing and kind of hoping that will kind of pull you into that mindset of being able to challenge for points this weekend.
Yes, new floor, which is good. The team's been, as you mentioned, the team's been pushing really hard, as every team does, of course. But we've had a pretty good rate of upgrades through the first few races, which is really nice to see. And yeah, need some points. We'll get some points. I keep saying it, but I will keep saying it until we get some, and then I'll say, well, we'll get some more now.
Great stuff. Good luck getting those points this weekend. Thanks. Thanks, mate.
Good to hear from Daniel. I bet he's itching to get back in the car as I try and keep this slot under control. We're all a bit excited to be back together.
It's like herding cats.
It's like sort of a first day back after half term, and we're here like buzzing to be back at school, aren't we? Anyway, we'll try and remain on task. Sauber is our next point of call. The big news, of course, beyond Adrian Newey leaving, is that Nico Hülkenberg has signed for Sauber from Haas. And Will, in the paddock today, you've been sort of having a few chats here and there. It doesn't seem all is that well at Sauber at the moment.
No,
Is unrest a fair word?
Yeah, I think unrest is a fair word. The team don't want us to use that, but I actually think it's fair to describe what's going on there. Valtteri Bottas has a new race engineer this weekend, which he was only told about a couple of days ago. They have moved his old race engineer out. I believe he's been let go from the team. Valtteri knew nothing about this. and has simply been told you've got a new race engineer this weekend, new performance engineer for Valtteri as well. We know that Audi is taking a greater role within the team moving forward, but it doesn't really feel like that has much to do with what's going on there. Unrest, I think, is the right word. But yeah, I mean, Valtteri, I think, is searching for new options now outside of Sauber. Easy for me to say, put my teeth back in. Because with Nico Hülkenberg taking one of those seats, we know that other seat is being looked at by Carlos Sainz and a number of other drivers. Valtteri weighing up his options around this paddock at the moment. But I think he recognises the writing being on the wall down there at Sauber. And certainly the situation there is not as... I don't think it's as easy as it could be. In a season where Valtteri's done, I think, a mega job at the start of this season. He was great in China, absolutely phenomenal. Really unlucky with that engine failure, because otherwise I think he would have been bang on for points.
Hinch, can I come to you as a driver? How much of an impact does a sudden change in race engineer like that have?
I mean, a mid-season engineer switch doesn't happen when things are going well. But the fact that the driver wasn't even consulted about this, wasn't even told about it till after it was done, that's very rare. That's very shocking. That's upsetting for the driver. You want to have some say in the team that's around you. That relationship is so important between driver and lead engineer that it really does point to things very unwell at that team. So I imagine he's a little bit frustrated, a little bit concerned. Hopefully the change is for the better. We'll see, the proof will be in the pudding on the racetrack. The stopwatch doesn't lie, but yeah, it's a very bizarre situation.
Very quickly, Lawrence Barretto, one name, please, for that second seat at Sauber, becoming Audi in 26 alongside Hülkenberg.
I think in an ideal world, they want Carlos Sainz, and they're prepared to wait, essentially, until he decides where he wants to go. Carlos is waiting to see whether Red Bull want him. There's also still a slim chance of that Mercedes seat as well, so Audi can wait. They can take comfort in the fact they've got Nico Hülkenberg now. They've got the German driver that they wanted for Audi's return. They've got a few more weeks now to wait and see what he's going to do. But I think Bottas still got a decent shot there if Carlos turns him down.
Great stuff. I asked for the one name. We've had a few. I like that. Bang for your buck with Lawrence Barretto. Let's hear from Nico Hülkenberg.
Hey Nico, congratulations on the new gig with Audi from next season. How good is it to kind of get that deal done early doors and to have such a long-term deal with a manufacturer?
Thank you. Yeah, it's obviously nice and quite a comfortable situation to have the future decided and nailed down so early. It's not the usual scenario for me, so it's quite pleasant, quite happy, obviously. So yeah, huge project, good opportunity for me, but also a huge challenge and a huge job in front of me. But for now, obviously, I know this is the news, but we still have a long way to go this season, and still very much committed and looking forward to the remainder of this season with Haas.
You mentioned that long way to go. You've got a good car at the minute as well, one that seems competitive across qualifying and the race. What do you expect this weekend at a very different street circuit here in Miami?
Yeah, obviously very hot here. I think this is one of the real first hot races this season, so it's going to be an interesting one for us to see, with overheating, with tire management, how our package copes with that here. Last year we were pretty competitive here, so my hope is there that we can have a similar weekend like last year.
Great stuff. Best of luck this weekend. Thank you.
Well, do you know what? Forget Nico Hülkenberg signing for Sauber and Audi in 2026. Forget Adrian Newey leaving Red Bull. The biggest news in Formula One this weekend is that F1 TV have secured Ruth Buscombe as part of our team. Ruth, the biggest, warmest welcome. How are you?
Well, Nui Hui, thank you very much for that intro. I'm absolutely delighted to be here. What a fantastic team, and also what a fantastic place to join your lovely crew.
We are so excited to have you. Look, 12 years in the sport. You're a race-winning strategist for the likes of Ferrari, for the likes of Alfa Romeo, of course. And now we've got you on this side of the fence. How are you enjoying it? How different is it to be here at a race weekend and able to walk into any motorhome you like, and speak to anyone you like, and sort of be, I guess, off duty in a sense?
Well, yeah, I have been able to do a back-to-back of the coffees, which I've never been able to do. So it's a wild.
And who's got the best?
Now I can't obviously really. Still working my way through.
Okay, all right.
You don't want to make favourites and isolate people. You make a bad
Not on day one. Not on day one.
Yeah, it's been absolutely fantastic. Strange to be on the other side of it. Strange to wear your own clothes. Obviously, no team kit. So, yeah.
You look great.
Thank you very much.
We're so excited to have you. You fit straight into the team already as well. Please do send any questions you have for Ruth on the hashtag F1 Live. Honestly, we've had you in the office for half a day and I've already learned so much, Ruth. So it's brilliant to have you along. Let's talk about Ferrari, shall we? Yes, Adrian Newey to Ferrari is the rumour that's being touted and much of the discussion around the teams, but also where Carlos Sainz is going to end up, Will, is another big question. You spoke to him earlier on, and you're wearing the Ferrari blue, can I?
Yeah, thanks. I thought I'd make the effort to
Nice.
do the. So yeah, Ferrari. Let's cover that off. Ferrari have been teasing this new livery for ages. Ooh, it's gonna be blue. Going back to North America, back in 1964, Ferrari ran a. Not to get too complicated, they ran a blue and white livery in North America, mainly because they were upset with the Italian Federation and the FIA, who failed to homologate one of their sports cars. Anyway, so they ran a blue and white car. Ferrari decided to pay homage to the history by not doing that kind of a livery at all, just chucking on some light blue and some other blue and a bit of a mishmash, hodgepodge weirdness that doesn't really work. But the overalls look amazing.
Yeah.
The shirts look amazing. I'm not a fan of the car livery. I just think it's a mess. It's a mess. You could have done something classic and beautiful. Look, kind of like that kind of blue and white. Simple. Keep it simple. Blue and white. Nice. Anyway, it's just a livery. But huge deal for Ferrari in the week. HP have come on board as a title sponsor. As I understand it, it's worth exactly 66%, so 2/3 of the budget cap. That's a $90 million per year title sponsorship deal. Absolutely huge for them. And they need every penny of it if they're going to employ Adrian Newey. But yeah, they're hoping for a good weekend here. It will be tough for them. They've been struggling on the slow corners all the way through this season. Mostly kind of like the long radius slow corners, and there aren't so many of those here, just one or two. But so they're hoping for a slightly better weekend, but it might be a touch of a struggle for them.
And the budget, of course, to bring in Lewis Hamilton for next season as well, in the place of Carlos Sainz. And earlier on, Will Buxton spoke to the Spaniard.
A new colour for you guys this weekend. Does blue suit you? Will it suit the car? Will the car suit the track?
I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, it looks good, man.
Thank you, then it suits me. Yeah, now happy to be racing these historical colors from Ferrari, and happy, to have a bit of a different vibe this weekend. Always good fun. I really like my helmet. That's one thing that I'm gonna take pride of, that this week's helmet is a special one, and I'm gonna enjoy it.
Lovely stuff. Will the car suit the track this weekend? I know slow corners have been a little bit of a headache for you guys this year.
Hopefully a bit better. We struggle more than in slow. I think it's more like the long radius, very long duration corner. I think here looks everything a bit tighter and more what it could be a bit better for our car. So I'm a bit more optimistic for here.
Good stuff. Got to ask you about the future and next year. Obviously, Hulkenberg confirmed over at Sauber, which becomes Audi. How are your negotiations going? We understand that might be one potential venue for you. Red Bull, everywhere else. Who are you talking to? How's it looking?
Right now, honestly, I'm talking to everyone. I'm still don't have anything confirmed for next year, so it would be stupid from my side not to be talking to everyone. And yeah, that's what I'm doing in the meantime without, unfortunately, without any news for you, any updates. Just that's how it's going right now.
How much are you reliant on whether Max stays or goes at Red Bull in terms of that, the duration of the thinking process? Because as the seats start to build up, are you worried you might lose opportunities?
Yeah, more than on what Max is doing or not. I'm relying on the feedback, the teams that I'm potentially gonna drive for next year, what they decide to do, and it's not my decision, fortunately. And yeah, I just need to wait for them to make up their mind and see what happens in the future.
Thanks.
Formula One right now feels like a game of chess, doesn't it? Pieces are being moved all over the place. I love it. I'm loving the intrigue, and I think Carlos Sainz is very much playing the game out there. He mentioned, of course, how difficult a sprint weekend is. This is our second one already of the season, back-to-back sprint weekends as well, and here in Miami for the first time. Ruth, as a strategist, I bet you're incredibly happy to be standing here, not having to worry about what on earth to do out on track in a sprint weekend, because it's intense enough on this side, let alone what it's like for you guys out there. Can you put it into words?
Well, exactly. It's a lot more intense. You only have that one practice practice session. And of course, we're going into a track where we've only been twice. There's been a complete change between the first year and the second year, where everything was resurfaced and changed. And now we're going into a completely new format. So it's almost, from a strategy perspective, like a new race all over again. And of course, with the new 2024 changes, we have kind of two new elements. One is that the timings of the way that the sessions have changed. And then the second one, as you mentioned, is the Parc Fermé rules, which means after you've had your sprint day, you can then change everything ahead of qualifying in the race. And on paper, you would think that's amazing, but actually what we saw in China was that you can make it worse as well as making it better. And I think that will have scared teams, again, going into this race weekend. With that one practice session, almost makes it a little bit easier on the sprint side of things compared to last week's, but then post-sprint, it's a bit of a mad rush to decide what you want to do for the qualifying session. And of course, it presents a really unique challenge for drivers, and it's something we haven't really had going from race fuel right into qualifying mode for the actual Grand Prix itself. And that, I think, more than anything, has created a bit of imbalance across the teams.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? A race and then suddenly back to qualifying. That switch in a driver brain must be extraordinary. We saw some of the issues for Mercedes last time out in China, Hinch, with them simply making, it seems, and not necessarily on George Russell's side of the garage, but on Lewis Hamilton's side of the garage, too many setup changes. Obviously, he had a brilliant sprint qualifying, and then and it's a brilliant sprint race as well, P2. Yeah. And then it just unravelled for him after that. I mean, how difficult is that change? And are they making too many setup changes? What is this experimentation?
Well, I think it's just that. I think it's experimentation. The teams don't know yet how many is too many given this format. First time they've done it, and obviously, like Ruth touched on, you can make the car better, but you can make changes that make the car worse. Every engineer's done it, every driver's dealt with it. It's just part of the sport. And you look at what happened to Hamilton in qualifying. In the race, he made up good ground and did a good job to salvage some points, but it's still something that the teams are figuring out. Eventually, I think we'll get to a little bit more of a formula once kind of people figure out the secret sauce of how much you can get away with or what your car really does like from one or the other. And then on the driver's side, going from fuel running and at the end of the race, maybe it's low fuel, but it's old tires, to then immediately switch that back on for qualifying is very difficult. When you do a normal qualifying session, P3, you will have done low fuel, new tire runs. You're kind of in that mindset. The last time you were on track, that's what you were doing. This is a completely different thing, and for sure, I think it caught some people out in China.
Yeah, it did. I always love that jeopardy element of a sprint weekend. We'll come to Aston Martin now. The right of review for Aston Martin for that 10-second penalty we saw for Fernando Alonso in the sprint race. Yes, he then DNF'd it after that collision with Carlos Sainz. But, I mean, I asked him earlier, is there any significant, relevant or new information? And obviously he wouldn't talk about it. The hearing is tomorrow on that one. Where do you think they're going to go with that? What do you think they're expecting from that?
Pointless penalty, pointless right of review, really, isn't it? Like, he DNF'd, got a 10-second penalty.
And 3 points on his license
well, 3
as well,
points.
yeah.
So, if anything, they're trying to overturn the 3 points on his license. But it feels like Aston Martin are kind of doing God's work at the moment in the Formula One paddock, because they're literally protesting everything to try and get a clear view of, right, well, how are you going to interpret the regulations this year, FIA? Because we quite like to know. And literally, almost every race, they're just going to review everything. Any penalty they get thrown at them. I don't think they can review the Lance one, because that was bang on, despite the fact that he's refused to apologise to Daniel, and Daniel doesn't want to be anywhere near Lance after that. I found it weird that Mike Crack was like, I don't know how we got that penalty. It was like, were you watching the same race as everybody else? Like, he wasn't even looking at the guys in front of him. So an interesting one for Aston Martin this weekend, on that right for review. But listen, this is a team that they're not where they were last year. They're not up there punching for podiums every weekend. They've got to make every single weekend count, particularly on a sprint weekend where they could be strong around this circuit. And there you want Fernando, pushing up the front like he was during the Grand Prix. Absolutely wonderful to see Fernando's with his elbows out, going for every single move, every single point. And even Lance, in that little battle with K-Mag, just for pride, not for points, but it's good to see the fight in him.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move to McLaren now. I spoke to Lando Norris earlier on. He seems quietly optimistic about the upgrades that they are bringing to the car. And of course, a surprising P2, surprising by their own admission as to how competitive they were in China, not expecting it. Ruth, what have you made of McLaren's pace so far this season, where they're sitting currently, and what their hopes might be here as a remote control car has just been wheeled into set and has hit our cameraman's legs? It all happens in the Miami paddock. Ruth?
Ever the entrance, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think McLaren have kind of picked up where they left off at the end of last season. We obviously saw how strong they were on those high-speed corners compared with how strong both their drivers are on high-speed corners. And obviously, Oscar's coming in, no longer a rookie, his sophomore year, to use an American term, so I did that one right. And I think it's probably more that their competition for that kind of P2 in the championship spot is maybe a little bit less than people were expecting. So I think they're kind of similar level percentage-wise. We want to dig into the numbers as where they were at the end of last year, but it is kind of your Ferraris and, dare we say, the Mercedes that have taken a bit of a step back.
A couple of new rules as well to cover off as teams bring in new upgrades here. One, that a set of inters must be returned from rain-affected practice sessions. Will, very quickly, can you cover off the jump start?
Oh, I love a jump start.
I knew you'd love it. I wanted to give it to you.
Yeah, wouldn't let it lie, wouldn't let it go. Jump start rules have been changed after the ludicrous, bizarre situation where it all came down to a transponder which didn't pick up. Look at an obvious jump start. I think Checo Perez had a worse jump start because he was actually travelling as the lights went out in this race. But there you see Lando move. So the rules have now changed to say that once light 4 has been illuminated and before the 5 lights go out, any movement within the box, and there is now no mention of transponder at all, it is literally just a visible movement from that car, will be deemed to be a jump start. But in typical FIA fashion, of course, light 4 doesn't mean light 4, it means light 2. Because light 4, it goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it's the second illuminated, but it's actually light 4.
Just make it when any light goes on. We'll just start there. How about from any light?
Let's give everyone... Aston Martin, next race. Right to review.
I knew he'd love doing it. That's why I gave it to him. Thank you, Will. Now, we are going to move from McLaren to Alpine, much like David Sanchez, their new executive technical director, who has come in charge strengthening the technical department at Alpine. And I think both drivers welcoming that change and saying, I think we need that given their woeful start to this season. Hinch, what have you made of their form so far and their prospects here with new parts on both cars running this weekend?
Yeah, it's obviously a tough start to the year, and I think they sort of expected it. It almost looks like McLaren 2.0, right? We saw this out of McLaren last year. The question is, can they make that same sort of jump that McLaren did mid-season? I'm not sure. I'm not sure they're sure, but certainly doing anything they can to bolster the technical staff is a step in the right direction. I think Esteban really benefited from those extra parts in the upgraded parts in China. Now both cars have them. Cautiously optimistic about progress. Are they going to be that 11th place car hoping that someone in the top 10 falls out to steal the last point? Probably not yet this weekend, but as long as their trajectory is the right way, I think all the team can be buoyed from that and kind of keep morale up.
Another gorgeous segue coming your way. Alpine Academy driver Abby Pulling is currently leading the standings after a win and a second place last time out in Saudi Arabia in F1 Academy. F1 Academy, of course, is back. Dorian Pin on track, won both of those races, but of course a penalty after missing the checkered flag demoted her 20 seconds. So Abby Pulling leading the way in that championship, and we're delighted to be welcoming F1 Academy back to Formula One weekend. Cannot wait to see the women out there. Okay, we're now going to hear from Alex Albon of Williams.
Alex, great to see you. I know the car's kind of been a bit more for an all-rounder this year. Do you think it should suit a circuit like this and kind of play to the characteristics?
I do. I think on paper we should be a bit more competitive this weekend. Not so much because of upgrades or anything like that, just purely on a car suiting the track point of view. It'll be interesting. I think in terms of our setup going into the weekend, I'll be interested to know where we fall out. I think we'll be a little bit different to other people. Yeah, I'm excited. I think, generally speaking, we've had a good car in the simulator, and we're just in a healthier position now. You know, third chassis here. We're getting into a bit more of a focus on this year in itself. Developments and upgrades coming throughout the season, so it feels like we're a bit more grounded and focused on the future.
Is that a bit of a relief to kind of have the third chassis here, to have comfortable with the spare parts, comfortable with the way the car's handling as well, at a circuit where you should do well?
It is. Actually, if you look at last year here, we had a car which, before the upgrade, so it was not the quickest car, but it was still near points. I think we qualified P12 at the time, and we didn't have quite a strong race, but the areas where we've really focused on from the 45 to the 46, there are a lot of the corners that this track has. So I'm excited to see, hopefully the progress is strong. Points are always going to be tricky, especially with the top 5 teams, but I'm the most optimistic I've been. Yeah.
Great stuff. Best luck this weekend. Thank you.
Well, in what is a bumper weekend warm-up, and from one Alex to another,
Hello.
it is Alex Jacques, our commentator. How are you?
I'm very well. It's delightful to be here in Miami. We've seen so much. It's a big event race, isn't it? So you get some top nonsense. And earlier on, we had Fred Vasseur playing
the
American
funniest
football
photos.
with Gunther Steiner, no less, about this spot on the pitch. And of course, because Fred and Gunther were involved, it descended into chaos pretty quickly. But that's the sort of thing that you get around this Miami circuit. There we are, they're pinging another ball into Gunther. He's having the time of his life at the moment. No real responsibility in any way, which is terrific.
Yeah, you sure that's not Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce? It's very difficult to
I
tell.
think by the drop, absolutely not. So that went on and on and on. That was good fun. But it's a special event, this one, isn't it? And it means that not only do we get crazy things like that on the middle of the pitch, the paddock is in the middle of the Hard Rock Stadium, our graphics team, they also go to work.
Stop it.
And this, I think, is one of the more exciting pieces of artwork you will ever see. Yeah, they've gone full Miami Vice.
What on earth is
And
there?
We're looking at the monitor here. So
I want to write a review.
That
I
is
think Lawrence looks dressed down compared to normal. Buxton's done, and yeah, he's
Buxton's going to the FAA right
so
now.
there we go. That graphic is going to be used time and time again.
Excellent.
And there we go. And that's the joy of Miami. So we were on Alex Albon a few minutes ago, and we've gone on a journey.
Alex, whenever I invite you, not that it's my show to invite you onto.
It's your running
but,
order.
But whenever,
Bad luck, producer Joe. It's over.
whenever you come onto a show, you stitch us all up. You have something hidden up your sleeve that you've been working away with the gallery with.
The graphics team are like that.
Yeah. Well,
I actually quite like how I look in that graphic. I think it's an upgrade on real life.
Okay, let's move on. This is descending into chaos, as I knew it would do with 6 people in this show. Williams, I'll come to you, Alex, on that. Alex Albon seemingly very positive. They've had a tough start. They've got a 3rd chassis here now. Hopefully this is on the up now for Williams, isn't it? And a sprint weekend where we could see a bit of chaos.
Yeah, they're very, very confident with the package they've got around this circuit. I think it swings the pendulum to a little bit of pressure, though. They've been on the back foot. Everyone's been going, OK, they haven't got the spare chassis. This is a deliver race for Williams, because when points are few and far between, if you don't perform at your good races, you're really on the back foot. So I think they've got to deliver something this weekend.
And look, it's a home race as well for Logan Sargent. Very keen to point out, this is not a home race for James Hinchcliffe. You may think he's American. He's in fact Canadian. But how much pressure is on the shoulders of Logan in yet again a season which he is under pressure in?
Well, the thing about having a home race, which he's so lucky he has 3, essentially. But
Insane,
I mean,
isn't it?
especially as a Florida boy, this one probably means the most to him. But as a driver, you put so much pressure on yourself anyway. There's not really much you can do. There's not really much external pressure that can really be added, frankly. But what it does do is it heightens the emotions, right? So a good day feels that much better and a bad day feels that much worse. And so that's why he's just hoping for a strong event. You heard how confident Albon was. Hopefully that same confidence is in Logan and he can have a strong result.
You were looking there to see who's possibly taken the attention away from what I'm saying, and it was Lewis Hamilton and George Russell of Mercedes, who are just heading over there to do an interview. Okay, Haas, also a home race for them, Ruth. What can they expect? Because I've been super impressed and actually really enjoyed the story of Haas picking up points, both drivers in the points, and not doing so because of some fluke or some crazy rain-affected race, but actually with consistency and with brilliant racing.
Well, I completely agree with you on that. I think they have been there, haven't they? Every single time there's been that 1 or that 2 point available, either through a DNF from one of the guys at the top 5 teams or through, frankly, beating Stroll. They've been the ones to do it. So it's been quite an exciting start to the season to them. And looking at how they've behaved in the last few races, also working as a team, I think that first point in Saudi was a really great example of the kind of strategic racing that's a plug, that you get in the back end of the field, or with those teams like that, where we actually saw that first point was Hulkenberg, Magnussen working together, spirit of America. Let's see if they can do it again this weekend.
And so much better than they anticipated at the start of the year. How they had us all believe that they were going to be dead last, forget us, don't worry. They're 2 points off RB, who've also made a big jump up to P6 as well. Okay, let's take a look at the weekend schedule for your second sprint race weekend and your 6th Grand Prix of the season. We'll be on air 12:15 for our one and only hour of running. Sprint qualifying comes at 4:30 here, track time. Your sprint race on Saturday. This is the new format, of course. That is at 12 p.m. our coverage beginning, and then cars out of Parc Fermé back in to Grand Prix spec for qualifying. That is at 3:30 p.m. on Saturday afternoon in the bright hot Florida sunshine. Race day here in Miami. We will be starting all the action here 4 p.m. track time. Okay, well, there we go. As ever, it's time for predictions. Ruth, you're going to have to get used to this now. We have to make our predictions for the podium. As you are here, it's your first weekend. I'm not going to be kind. You can go first.
Max Verstappen to win the race.
No, it's a bold claim.
That's spicy.
That's why you hired me, for my strategic brilliance. Yeah, I put my money on a Red Bull 1-2 around this track. I think the P3 is a little bit more open. Potentially a Ferrari. I reckon I'm putting it on one of the boys in blue this weekend. Let's go Charles, my previous colleague. Let's go for Charles. So I'll have him in third.
Nice. I like the boys in blue as well. Yeah. Alex Jacques.
Going for Red Bull 1-2, Max Verstappen to win, Checo in second, and I'm going to go for Carlos instead of Charles. There you go. Bit of variation.
This
Good
is
luck,
all
Hinch.
riveting.
I'm really going to mix it up.
Okay,
I'm going to do Max and Perez 1-2. But I'm going to go with Lando for P3 because he said he wasn't low-speed corners. They said they're not good at those, but they said they weren't going to be good in China, and they were great. And there's some quick corners here as well, which we know they're strong in. So Lando P3, and he loves Miami.
Well, you took my prediction, so I'm going to change it up completely. I'm going to say Max Verstappen, top step of the podium. I'm going to say a Lando Norris P2. And Carlos Sainz P3.
It's ridiculous what you said.
I know, wild
crazy.
And bold.
Nope.
Anyway, that's what to expect from weekend warm-up, and we will be proved so wrong come Sunday's Grand Prix. But of course, this is sprint weekend, so jam-packed full of action. Big thanks to Lawrence Barretto, to Will Buxton, I'm gonna have to remember all of these names in this show, to Alex Jacques, to James Hinchcliffe, back for the first time this season with us. We're so glad to have you.
And I'm no longer the new guy.
No longer, and for the first time, a very, very warm welcome and a goodbye and a thank you to Ruth Buscombe. Thank you all so much for watching. We will see you tomorrow for 1 hour of free practice and sprint qualifying. See you then.
Welcome to Miami.
Let me introduce you to the 20 best drivers in the world.
The home support is amazing.